Alright guys, so welcome back to another video. So we're still in the winter months here at Carnoustie, so it's getting a little tricky to play. It's been frosty all week, so the courses have been winter greens, etc. So I thought we'd try something a little different today, and we're going to do, if anybody that's watched my videos will see that I'm not a great driver of the ball, but my short game usually gets me out of trouble. So that's the area we're going to concentrate on today. So basically, if you're the kind of person that struggles around the greens with duffs, thins, inconsistent strikes, this video is for you, right? So let's get into it. Right, so a lot of people, most golfers in fact around the green struggle with a short game because they use the wrong part of the club, right? And I was one of these guys for a long time. I was always taught ball back, hands ahead, and and there you go. You take a big divot. The problem with that, if you do that and catch the ground a little bit before the ball, it just goes there. So we need to get away from that. Much more modern is using this part of the club here, the bounce, right? So if you've got the wedge sitting down like this and dig it that way, you can see the leading edge is going to dig in. But what we need to do is learn to use the bounce at the back here, because that will contact the ground and help the club glide rather than dig. So you can actually hit sometimes an inch, even 2 inches before the ball and still make solid contact. So that's what we're going to talk about here. So as I said, I used to be very kind of leading edgy. The ball would come off low and hot, it would go too far, inconsistent strikes. So I had to learn a whole new way of chipping. And what that involved was getting the ball further forward in my stance and letting the club release a lot more, that kind of feeling there. And if you watch the difference here, so this is leading edge, look, divots, you're making a mess, right? If you let the club release and use the bounce, no divot at all. So the advantage to that, as I said, is that you can catch the ground an inch, 2, 3 inches before the ball sometimes and still make solid contact. So I'm going to over-exaggerate this one here and try and catch the ground way before the ball and just see what happens, right? So I hit that probably 4 or 5 inches behind the ball and it's gone up to 2 feet. Whereas, like I said, if you get the ball too far back in your stance and use too much of the leading edge and get it wrong, okay, I got that one right, never mind. Almost in the hole, but there you go, right? That's a good example. I hit that in the same spot as the one before, about 3 inches before the ball, but because I used the leading edge, the ball goes there instead of 2 feet away. So how do we do this? First of all, the main thing we need to do is get the ball much further up in your stance. It's going to feel really uncomfortable to start, but you need to get the ball further up in your stance to give the club head a chance to catch up and ideally pass the hands, or at least return back to the same point. Okay, so in terms of setup, we want the ball a little further forward in your stance rather than back here, but we also want the shaft more up and down rather than leaning ahead. If we have the shaft further back, that's going to expose more of the bounce at the back, which is what we want. Okay, so that simple adjustment straight away, ball further forward, hands further back. Lovely. No divot. Didn't even make great contact there, but it's 3 feet away. Okay, so that's the first part of it. Now, a really good drill to feel this. I saw this watching Jon Rahm practicing, and he puts a towel under his arms. And what this helps with is it stops any kind of dragging, it stops the hands flicking too much, and it helps you rotate through the ball better. So the idea is to keep the towel under you at all times. Okay, so if you can feel that sort of motion there of rotating your body, it's going to be much easier to use that bounce. So like I said, ball forward, hands level, even slightly behind is okay. You just don't want it too far this way because that's going to expose the leading edge. Hands back, rotate, lovely. A little bit of spin, 3-4 feet away. okay? And that's basically the basic chipping motion, okay? It extends, if you go to the next pin, it's the same idea. We just don't want to get this leading edge, right? The ball's going to come off too hot, but the strikes are going to be very inconsistent. So if we go to the next pin out there, get rid of that, and I go back to this old technique, you see there, the ball comes off much lower, and it's releasing out 6 feet past. I've taken a divot. It's just very hard to get a good strike doing that. But if you can use the bounce properly, like that, you're at a much higher, softer, a little bit of spin, 3 or 4 feet. So that's the basic chip shot in terms of using the bounce. And like I said, these clubs, you know, this, I've got a 56 degree wedge which I use around the greens, 10 degrees of bounce. So that's more than enough to get that working for you rather than this leading edge, okay? All right, so just thought we'd do, before we move on to the next part, we just thought we'd do a kind of down the line look to show you the difference in ball flight between the two different types of technique that I talked about there. So if we go back to the ball, we go to that middle pin there, the second pin, right? If I go ball back, hands ahead, you see it's gonna, comes off much lower. That wasn't too bad, but it's really hot, and look, it's chasing 10 or 12 feet past the hole, big divot, not good. Okay, we don't want that. Whereas, get that ball further forward, and like I said, get that feeling of letting the right hand release a little bit more. An important part of this as well that I had to get used to, which felt awkward, was that if anything, you want the backswing to be a little bit longer, but slower, slower technique. So you don't want to be short and jabby, because that encourages that move there where you're going to dig. What you want is a little bit more rhythm, a little bit longer and looser to give the club time to just drop and catch up, okay? But same pin, using my new technique, much nicer. Hit that one a little bit too hard, but you can see the difference, not much of a divot. Ball came off much higher and softer with a little bit of spin. So, but weirdly, the contact on the first one was better than the second one. But because I used the bounce on the second one, I hit about an inch before the ball, and I still got a really good result. So that's a perfect example of what we're talking about there, guys. Okay, so just a little recap on that going forward. You really just want to feel that the ball's a little forward in your stance. So rather than back here, in the middle of your stance, or even a little bit forward is okay. Hands behind, and just feel like you let that club pass your hands like this, okay? We don't want any dragging this way. That's when you're going to get that there, where you're digging the ground, and it's really, really difficult to make solid, consistent contact that way, okay? Okay, so we've been through the first reason why a lot of you, including myself at some points, hit those heavy ones with the leading edge this way. Another one why people hit inconsistent shots around the greens is because of their weight. So basically what happens a lot of the time is people, they maybe see a bunker in front of them and they get a bit nervous and they try to help the ball up in the air, and they do this. They fall back, catch the ground way before the ball, and that's going to result in duffs, thins, all sorts of bad things, okay? So a good drill to avoid this that I learned was basically, you can try it on one foot. It's pretty difficult to keep your balance that way, I have to be honest. So the one that I like is basically putting your right foot back, right? So if you let your weight come back the way, right, you're going to fall, you're going to lose your balance. So this encourages you to just keep your weight over the ball and allow that club to pass, right, as we spoke about at the start. So I'll demonstrate a bad one, right? So if we let the weight go backwards, right, actually wasn't too bad to be fair, but I've practiced my short game a fair bit, but I'll try and demonstrate a really bad one here for you. So the weight falls back. Actually, not doing a very good job of demonstrating a bad one here. Yeah, maybe I'm doing it wrong after all. But generally what's going to happen is you're going to catch them thin like that. There you go, there's a good one there. So that's a disaster. That's 20 yards off the other side of the green. You're making double bogey, triple bogey from there. Or you catch the ground way too far back, and there you go. So that was like duffed and thinned all at the same time, right? Disaster. So we need to make sure that the weight, if anything, stays left, okay? You don't want it to fall back on your right-hand side. So like I said, this drill is great for that. So right foot back. Like I said, if I fall back here, I'm going to lose my balance terribly. So this is a really good drill. Same technique as I said in the first part of the video. And look at that. Keep your weight there, and you get a lovely shot. That came up, it's 4 feet away from the hole. And that's basically as simple as that. Just concentrate on keeping the weight on your left foot. This is here for balance as much as anything, but try and not let the weight fall back, okay? So the towel drill that I showed is really good for that as well. So we'll try that again with both, but the towel drill is really good for keeping your upper body moving through and towards the target this way, okay? So try the two of them together. There you go. So I'm over the ball, I've made nice contact, my body's gone through this way. And do you know what? I wouldn't even mind if on the golf course you actually chip this way. Certainly to start off, okay? It's going to look a bit odd, you might get a bit of grief from your playing partners, but if it stops you duffing the ball here and thinning it over the green into disaster areas, it's going to be good for your game. And they're going to be pretty quiet pretty quickly if you do that. So as I said, a good combination is these two drills here. And like I said, if I fall back, I'm going to lose my weight. I'm going to have to go back onto this foot here. So keep the weight on your left side and just rotate through. Lovely. Okay. So hopefully that is going to make a big difference to your short game, guys. I know it's something that a lot of people get nervous about, something that a lot of people struggle with in their game, and that costs them sometimes dozens of shots around. So pretty simple stuff, but I hope it helps your game. So as I said before, guys, thanks very much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more. We're going to do more of these tutorials going forward. I think it's good for my game as well, to be honest. It helps me just keep on top of what I should be working on. But more importantly, hopefully it helps you in the future. So thanks again, guys.